Eli5 What happens to the areas where nuclear bombs are tested? It depends. If they detonated it high enough that the fireball didn't touch the ground. Not very much. The area would be safe again in a few days. If they tested it underground, again, not very much. If it was a ground burst, it could take 5–10 years for the area to be safe again, but after that, the radiation level wouldn't really be any higher than the normal amount that you get from just living on Earth. So in short, except for damage to the terrain, not much. The areas where nukes were tested are all safe to visit now. CMA test site is a zone of radioactive contamination. Outer side is level of contamination here and there radioactive land patches and inner side is more radioactive. The contaminated land must be frequently digged up and mixed with less contaminated zone to lower background radiation level. Soviets didn't tell locals that they were testing nuclear weapons. Later people started to have health issues. Kazakhstan is still paying pension to citizens who were affected by radiation of test site. Ever seen the documentary show SpongeBob? That takes place in Bikini Bottom, which is part of the Bikini Atoll, former site of atomic weapons testing. Seriously though, many sites stay radioactive and uninhabited. People and animals are affected. And eventually it dissipates. Atomic weapons have less radioactive material than say, Chernobyl. That's why people live and thrive in Hiroshima today. Most were cleaned up. The Trinity site can be visited a few times a year. I've been there. Other testing sites were Algeria, Australia, and South Pacific Marshall Islands, French Polynesia. The radioactive debris from Bikini Atoll tests were cleaned up and placed under a concrete dome. GPS 11.552720, 162.347114. From the 1960s or so they were all tested in tunnels deep underground. For the most part, they remain vacant. I have a friend that studied in nuclear chemistry back when we were in school. He got a university job where he was basically a researcher. He'd go out in the Washington desert to Old Hanford site. On a given day, he might drive out and look for rabbit poop. He tested for radioactivity and log and compare results to show where levels were. After the fact, the short-lived radiation decays over the course of months to years, but the site will maintain elevated but not dangerous levels of radiation compared to normal background. Most of the locations are still underground and not open to the public at all times. However, it is possible to visit some of these sites in the States on specific days or through a guided tour. They get blown the F up. X200b. Other than that, the rocks literally melt and form a kind of glass. The place is a bit radioactive but most of it goes away quite quickly, but they remain radioactive for a while. The Trinity site for instance was open for tours back already in '53, but right now the radiation in the area is still 10x larger than background. A post on my feed just about this Eli5 is about a community in New Mexico that suffered and is suffering because of Oppenheimer. Outside In from NHPR did an excellent episode interviewing people who have been affected by US nuclear tests. Long story short, it releases a bunch of carcinogenic radioactive material that can spread far and wide and affect people for a long time. There are still sites where the people who live there can't return. They try to get compensation but got only a little bit. So the US, UK and France destroyed the home of thousands of did not take any responsibilities for it. Some become tourist attractions, and you can dive the wrecks at Bikini Atoll if you have the money. Good answers here, but also the US underground test site still looks a bit beat up. 20 test 20 site. Why are there many questions related to atomic bombs? We get it, the movie came out. But WTF is this pop culture fascination with this crap? You're 5? There's a big boom. Everything around the boom turns to dust. It makes a big crater.